Hey everyone, so I'm back, but this time I have a video not for my students, but for my colleagues, for fellow educators or teachers, anyone who works with students really. Earlier in the semester, I held a brown bag workshop based on self-care and the importance of self-care for those of us who work in education. And I thought that I would try to replicate that, I guess, in a video since we can't be on campus now. And I feel like this topic is really important right now because we're all living through a trauma, and the way we communicate with each other has changed, and it just seems like it's harder to know when the workday ends, right? It just seems like so many of us our days are kind of like blending together because we're working just around the clock. And as I think about this topic of self-care, I'm thinking about so many of my colleagues who work so hard, and I just want all of you to know that you are very much appreciated, and our students are so blessed to have all of you to teach them, care for them, advocate for them. So so why is self-care so important? I came across this quote maybe, I don't know, a year ago or so, and it just made an impact on me. It says self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. So obviously, if we are feeling tired, drained, overwhelmed, we're not really, we're not really putting our best face forward, and we're not able to give our students the kind of support that they need. So, so that's why I had this idea to do this workshop, and I'm going to walk you through some things that I think are helpful for self-care. I also want to point out, I guess, that I am not an expert. I struggle with this just as much as the next person, and I may have, a bunch of good ideas and be able to tell you or share some things that have worked for me, but that doesn't mean that, I don't also struggle with the same things that everyone else does. So just keep that in mind. So the first thing that I'd like to show you is this SelfCare Assessment. And this is something that I used in my workshop. This is how we started our workshop. I passed out this assessment. As you can see, there's like a modified Likert scale here, and there's different categories. And I'll try to post all of these documents that I'm showing in the description box. I'm assuming I can do that. We'll see. But, or I can maybe include the link to where I got this from. Anyway, so as you can see, there's different categories, right? So there's different kinds of self-care. There's physical self-care, there's psychological and emotional self-care, social self-care, spiritual self-care, and professional self-care. So what I'd like you to do is, if you can access this, go ahead and pause the video, go through these different categories, and fill this out and see where you stand. Obviously there's no right or wrong answers, and there's no points tally to say like, you scored this many points, so you're terrible at this. It's just for your own, it's just really to the goal of this is really just to inspire your thinking and just to have you reflect on some of these categories. So I think one of the first things that we need to look at is setting boundaries, which is so important, but for many people, myself included, it's just really hard, especially when you care so much for your students, and you're almost willing to do anything to help them succeed. But if we don't set proper boundaries, that could be a recipe for disaster, right? So for example, in my classes, I use an app called Remind that allows us to text each other. So the students can receive text announcements from me, and I have it set so that they can also text me, and no one's phone number has to be exchanged, which is really nice. But what I learned the hard way, the first time that I used it years ago, was that if you don't set the proper boundaries for usage of apps like that, you'll find that you're getting contacted, at all times of the day and night, during the weekends. It just starts to become overwhelming. So what I do now is, in my syllabus, I include my hours of availability for texting. So I'll tell my students that from Monday to Friday, between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m., they're welcome to text me if they have a quick question. And I might not be able to answer right away, but I will get back to them during those hours. If a student tries to text me after that or on the weekends, I just don't answer until the next day or until Monday, and I have had much better results after doing that. And there are many different ways that we need to be careful of our boundaries, just because we want to be mindful of our position as someone of authority. We're not our students' friends. We are their instructor. So I just think that it's something that we need to be careful of. And if we don't have that boundary, it could very easily turn into a situation where we are getting very emotionally invested, but not in a positive way, if that makes sense. Another thing to think about is that it's not just with students that we need to set those boundaries, but also with the people that we work with, right? And I don't mean that in a malicious sense, but if you're getting emails or texts from colleagues or superiors, and it's late at night, or it's on the weekend, I just don't think that's good. I think that we need to respect each other's space. And I know that I'm also guilty of occasionally sending an email, late at night, and I try really hard not to do that. But yeah, there definitely should not be an expectation that, that we are on call, all day and night, and available to respond to emails. So that's just something to think about as well. So we talked about boundaries because I feel like that's really important. I think another great way to practice self-care is either by practicing meditation or mindfulness or prayer. So this is from Oprah's magazine, and it's just an article about different apps that can help you with mindfulness or meditation. I will say that many of these are subscription-based apps, so they may have free versions, but a lot of them are paid apps. So I know one of my colleagues uses Headspace and really enjoys that. Um, you know, there's lots of different options for mindfulness and meditation because, of course, that's been really popular the past several years. I personally like to do prayer, and there's apps for that too. This is the one that I use. It's called Hallow. Um, and yeah, it has, well, Hallow along with these other apps have nighttime, different meditations for nighttime, different meditations for daytime. There might be different meditations depending on, what you're trying to seek at that moment, whether it's peace or calm. So I would definitely take advantage of those. Sleep is really important, right? So I know that when we are feeling anxious, it can be hard to get a good night's sleep. And there are articles about healthy sleep hygiene and turning off your electronics an hour before bed. Um, who really does that? I mean, I'm sure some people do, but for me, I can't. But but I do think that, something that can help you that may be easier to do is to just be really consistent with your bedtime and your wake up time, and to make sure that you're not staying up till, 2 or 3 in the morning grading papers or, watching Netflix. Just try to get that full, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If that's difficult for you, then something that has helped me in the past is listening to binaural beats. If you've never heard of that, I will link this article below. But basically, it's music. I guess you can. I mean, yeah, I guess you can call it music. But I'll just show you real quick. So binaural beats is music that they're they're beta waves and theta waves, and it's certain frequencies of waves that are supposed to help you, um, either fall into like a really deep sleep, or there's different beats as you see here for concentration music for studying. And I do find that it really helps me to relax and to fall asleep pretty quickly. There's alpha waves as well. But that's something that I would try out. If you're someone who has trouble falling asleep, or if you're someone who wakes up in the middle of the night and has a hard time getting back to sleep, try listening to some binaural beats. Of course, that would entail you turning your device on. So I don't know. I guess it's a catch-22, but hopefully that's something that could help you. I also have this checklist that I made for my workshop, and here are just some things that maybe you can choose a few of and just try to incorporate. I tried to keep it pretty simple. So for example, waking up 15 minutes earlier and just, stretching your body, taking a walk during lunchtime, spending time with a pet, going to bed just a little bit earlier to try to get into that habit. Spend 5 minutes a day taking deep breaths. That's really good for calming yourself. Practice saying no. Again, that's, relating to boundaries. Declutter one thing from your home or office. I know the research shows that if you're in a cluttered space, it's harder to concentrate and be productive and feel happy. What else? Gratitude. So I talk a lot about gratitude and just focusing on what you're grateful for. That can rewire your brain to feel happier. And that kind of goes hand in hand with my last item here, completing an act of service. Studies also show that those who volunteer or do acts of service for others are genuinely happier. So there's something about, helping our fellow human beings that makes us feel good and is just satisfying. Drinking something warm like a cup of tea, editing your social media feeds, or setting clear limits for your social media, I think is a really good idea as well. Maybe you limit your Facebook or Twitter to, um, you know, 30 minutes a day, or 30 minutes a day in the morning, 30 minutes at night. Um, as long as you limit it, I think that's important, especially with so much bad news in the media and so much just weird media. I feel like it's good for our mental health to set limits for social media and news. Creating daily goals, I think, is a great way to kind of keep us focused. Asking for help when you need it, connecting with a friend, these are all things that can support us. So, again, I'll try to put all of these files in the description box, and I would love to hear in the comments from you what you like to do for self-care. Share your tips with everyone else, and thank you so much for watching.